Welcome, everybody, to a new show brought to you by SRL Media. It's the SRL on the NFL. I'm Brendan Yerkes, joined alongside Alex Facciponte, and every week on Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to be bringing you this show where we recap every game of the previous NFL week, give our predictions for the next week, and we're going to keep our records going throughout the year, see who can predict the most games right. But for the beginning process, we're excited to get this new show started. We're going to become more consistent. And in the beginning, we're going to be kind of working out the kinks of how we want to do this show. So we might go through a few changes in the beginning and early stages here, but we're definitely excited about getting it going.
All right, so let's just start getting right into these games. We got Thursday Night Football, Ravens-Chiefs. What a way to kick off the season. What are we thinking here?
Well, it's crazy because that was the AFC Championship last year.
Yeah.
And the Ravens were the superior team going in, but Kansas City won anyways, like they tend to do. So, you know, back-to-back years, champions, raising a banner again, first game, a Thursday. Like, you know, that's what the Chiefs are used to doing, and they're on home soil, and they definitely got better in the offseason, too, at least on the offensive side of the ball. The defense, they lost L'Jarius Sneed, which is a big blow, but I think on offense, you can't really say they got worse, especially when their wide receiver room was as bad as it was last year, and they still won. That they definitely are improved.
Yeah, no, they're definitely improved overall, at least on the offensive side of the ball. But then you still look at this defense. It's still last year was the best defense that Mahomes has ever had, and he clearly rode that within the playoffs. And yeah, they lose L'Jarius Sneed, which obviously isn't great, but they still have a really good defense, and Chris Jones is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. I think everyone knows that. But I know this may sound a bit crazy. I think I may go the Ravens here. And the reason I'm going the Ravens here is it's just that like traditional like Super Bowl hangover where the team that was in the Super Bowl or just won the Super Bowl comes out a bit flat. They're just not themselves. Sometimes the Chiefs also early on in the regular season don't look like themselves. And I feel like the Ravens are more hungry. And like you said last year, they came into the playoffs looking like a better team. I think I'm going to go the Ravens here.
And yeah, the Ravens are going to be hungrier because they lost that game. They come in with Derrick Henry, who I'm excited to see on that team, giving a formidable running back to Lamar Jackson. But Kansas City, they lost the first game last year. If you remember, that was Detroit that came in and beat them. And I think Kansas City was the better team in that game. They just didn't end up getting the win. Where this year they're used to playing these kinds of games. And you're right, they don't play well earlier in the season. But I think they're coming prepared, especially after the way things went last year. Remember, they don't even think they had Chris Jones in that first game last year. I believe that was last year he was dealing with the contract dispute. So they have everybody, and you haven't really heard much out of their camp because nothing interesting has gone on. It's just the same old business as usual. So I think I'm going to lean Kansas City. I think it's going to be a close game. I did almost go with Baltimore, but I'm going to give Kansas City the edge. They have everybody. They're healthy, and they're on their home field. So I think that's something that'll go in the favor of the Chiefs. But our second game, which is insane that it's even happening, is the Brazil game in Sao Paulo. And it's the two green teams that can't wear green in the stadium, the Packers and the Eagles. And I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Shout out Roger Goodell for being the worst NFL commissioner I've ever seen. Because, let's put two of the green teams that can't play in or shouldn't be able to wear green, I should say, in that stadium that's like been a tradition there for years. I mean, they worked it out where I think the Eagles are going to be wearing their black jerseys, and then
the Eagles are wearing their black helmets and black pants with a white jersey.
Okay.
So I think that's what the soccer team that plays there traditionally wears is a white jersey, black pants.
And then what are the Packers doing?
I think the Packers might be wearing the green.
They're wearing the green?
I don't know if they found a loophole around it. I think they justified it somehow. But what else are they going to wear? They have green and they have white. So they have to be wearing green. I mean, they're not both wearing white. So
right. I find it crazy. I'm just like, wow, there's so many just primary blue teams. You couldn't pick two blue teams. Like, I don't know. Or like any other team.
You could have picked one green team that would wear white.
Yeah, that's also true. It's just like, I don't know, like the poor planning by the NFL and also like knowing that it's probably not the safest area to play a game into isn't great as well. But looking at the game itself, I think I'm gonna lean. I think I'm gonna lean probably more towards Green Bay here, and the reason why is because that Philly collapse towards the end of the season was brutal. I understand that they are now, from what I understand, they have better coordinators and stuff like that to work things out. But that collapse was no joke. They obviously have holes on that defense. It's not the same that it was a few years back. Uh, they also have this new offensive weapon in Saquon, which obviously they're going to have to try to implement him into that offense. Obviously, he's a very good weapon, as I've seen with my Giants. But again, you got to work in these players. So I feel like there's going to be some possible issues here on offense. Their defense still has a bit of question marks, especially when you look towards the secondary. So I just feel like I'm going to head more towards the Packers here.
I'm also leaning Green Bay. Now, with that being said, I do think they're being a tad bit overhyped this offseason.
I
A
agree.
lot of people coming in. I've seen some power rankings, top 5, top 10. I saw somebody put them at 2,
Wow.
actually, in the power rankings, which I think it's
No,
very
that's
high.
insane.
Listen,
Yeah.
I am a believer in Jordan Love, especially you sit behind Aaron Rodgers for that long. You got to be doing something right. And you saw a lot of his mannerisms come out last year. And they were the 7th seed. They beat the Cowboys in a shocking game. They almost beat San Francisco. They don't.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to come in and be a team that makes the playoffs this year. But I think the excitement's a little bit high. I'm still going to give them the edge in this game. I just think the Eagles have too many distractions going on this offseason. And I think both teams are going to be in the wrong mindset. It's going to be a sloppy game regardless, just because the Brazil thing. And I think everybody's in a new place, unfamiliar, first time they're there, a lot of nerves. So I think it's going to be a slow starting game. I feel like more of a running game where both teams have good running games. Obviously, the first game for Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia, but it's in Brazil. So again, nerves there. So I think that's going to affect it. But yeah, Green Bay is in a good position here, and I'm going to give them the edge in this Brazil game.
All right, so now let's look towards Sunday. The first game I have listed here is the Steelers and the Falcons at 1 o'clock. What are we thinking here?
So I'm a big believer in the Falcons this year.
Okay.
We were going to do a show to predict our division winners and our wild card teams, but we just haven't been able to find the time. So we're going to put some stuff on social media outlining our picks and why. But I think the Falcons are by far the best team in the NFC South. And I think they're going to win a lot of games against teams in that division. And now they're starting against a team in obviously a different division in the Steelers. But I just think that offense is built well. Now, I mean, obviously Rondale Moore going down after you just get him is tough. That's a big blow.
Right.
But you have Kirk Cousins, which is stability at quarterback, and they haven't had that. They've been bouncing around for a few years, and their offense was never really the problem. Their offense was solid. Like the line's been pretty good. You had a couple weapons, obviously Kyle Pitts. They had Calvin Ridley a couple years ago, but they've got Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier in the backfield. You got a solid receiver group, like I said, Kyle Pitts, and now Kirk Cousins, who's been great. He was injured last year, is going to be the quarterback. And then that's not even that. The defense was always the issue, and they've made a ton of moves to improve that. So that's something that's going to look good for Atlanta this year. And going into Pittsburgh, they have Russell Wilson starting. I just don't really believe in what they've been doing. I think that they're going to be better again because Russell Wilson was solid last year. He was solid. That was it. But nothing too special. And I think Atlanta being at home, their fans are excited, especially after a couple down years. So I got the Falcons winning in week 1.
Yeah, I think I'm going to head more towards the Falcons here as well. It's not even maybe for me like a direct love of the Falcons and more of just I'm not too high in Pittsburgh this year. I think Russell Wilson is an improvement over Kenny Pickett, but how much of an improvement is it really? And both Wilson and Justin Fields, who they also acquired in this offseason, I don't even think they had a touchdown in the preseason from what I understood. I know it's preseason, so like you could take that with a grain of salt, but it just doesn't look like that offense is moving down the field well. It really hasn't for a while, since like Big Ben, which is a little bit ago. They still have a really good defense, but yeah, this firepower on Atlanta's side, I'm really starting to like. Bijan was obviously a great rookie last year. I think he's going to break out and potentially be a top 2 to 3 back in the NFL. Um, and then, yeah, London and Pitts, who have never had stability at quarterback, and people always love their physical skills, but they've never been able to actually translate it onto the football field because they had Desmond Ritter throwing them the ball. So
Who also got
finally,
cut from the Cardinals too, so he didn't
yeah,
even make that
exactly. He'll
roster.
be he'll be going to his DoorDash ways from the commercials that we've seen.
Wow.
But what I'm trying to say here, though, is yeah, definitely the consistency, which is what Kirk Cousins brings. They also, yeah, they lose Rondell Moore, but then you also do have Darnell Mooney too, who is a pretty solid receiver there as well. So yeah, I'm liking the Falcons, especially in the South as well, because that South is just mediocre in terms of a division. But yeah, I think they're the best team in the South, and I'm gonna put them over the Steelers here.
So a lot of agreeing so far. Next up, we got the Cardinals and the Bills. This one is in Buffalo for Week 1, and I think I'm going to go with the stunner here. I think this is my first upset I have here, and I think I'm going to take the Cardinals to win this game. I
Interesting.
think that the Bills had a lot of turnover last year, player wise, and I think nobody's talking about it. I just think that they lost so many pieces. They had to cut people to, be under the cap and stuff. So they lose Stephon Diggs, which will probably end up being a good thing in the long run for them because he was starting to become a distraction.
Right.
Now, I still think they're going to be okay. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were. I see
Yeah.
them in like the 8 to 12 win range. Like I feel like they're not going to be up there. They could still be I think a wild card team. I don't know if they're good enough to win that AFC East anymore, but
Okay.
still in the wild card contention. And I think they're
Mhm.
going to figure it out. But I think Week 1, you always have a couple surprises. They're still adjusting to the newer players they have, losing a lot of free agents. And the Cardinals, they come in, they're hungry. They, weren't great last year, but they showed some flashes. They were at least somewhat a fun team. When they brought in Jonathan Gannon, nobody really expected much, and they showed a lot of fight. And now you bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., who's exciting a lot of people. Kyler Murray's back, and I think those two might have be the surprise Week 1 that you don't expect coming and going up in Buffalo and pulling off an upset. So I think that would be fun to see, and that's my pick there.
For me personally, I think I still just have to go with Buffalo here. Um, Josh Allen is pretty much at this point still definitively the second best quarterback in the NFL. They unlocked their run game last year with James Cook towards the back end of the season. Once they started scheming more towards run, they went on that crazy run and led them to a 2 seed in the playoffs. I know that they obviously had their kryptonite in the Chiefs, but still, they made a good run last year where people were concerned that they weren't even going to make the playoffs at some point. So I just think that they have more pedigree. They've been there, done that in the regular season. Um, and I like these young receivers that they do have. I love Khalil Shakir. I think he's a potential breakout candidate. Keon Coleman, the rookie that they drafted, also looks really good from what I understand. And I also think Dalton Kincaid is someone to look out for as well. I know that Allen hasn't really had a huge reliance on tight ends, at least at this point of his career, but Kincaid looks like a really good prospect here that I think could also put up some numbers. But overall, I just think that the Cardinals aren't ready yet in terms of beating the Bills. If it was a slightly better team, I could see what you're talking about in terms of the turnover. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Bills here.
Yep, you can't really fault you for that one. The Bills have proved to be one of the best teams in the NFL the last couple of years. Still a lot of good players, but yeah, I think it'll be an interesting year for them to see if they can keep up what they did. Because remember last year they started very badly and they went
Yeah,
on like a kind of a miracle run towards the end there. Like they beat a lot of good teams in the heavier part of their schedule and were
definitely.
able to make it to the playoffs. I think it's the 2 seed too. They were pretty
Yeah,
up
it's
there. They
just
actually
yeah,
had
yeah,
home field against Kansas City, but ended up
didn't
losing.
matter.
So next up, we have an interesting game for Week 1, but Tennessee Titans and the Chicago Bears. And the Bears fans have had a lot of excitement with Caleb Williams coming in. Roma Dunze made some signings that starting to look up a little bit in Chicago, and I'm going to give it to them. I think they win Week 1. Caleb Williams is going to be ready to go, And Tennessee, I do like their moves a little bit. I don't think they're going to be as bad as some people are saying. They got L'Jarius Sneed, who we just brought up before, and made a couple other nice pickups. But I think the Bears, the excitement, sometimes it falters, but I think Caleb's going to step right in and have a big game right away.
The offensive weapons on the Bears are just ridiculous. Like, you have DJ Moore, who was phenomenal last year, and then you also draft Roma Dumze, who is supposed to be really good out the gate with the 9th overall pick. And then you bring in Keenan Allen as well, who was phenomenal last year. You also have just solid supporting pieces with Cole Kmet, and you also brought in DeAndre Swift, who is going to be the lead back in that backfield. So in terms of offensive weapons, skill positions at least, they're going to look great. I think.
And the defense was already good.
Defense
that's
yeah. But they never had a legit quarterback in what seems like almost ever, which is insane to say. And I'm a big believer in Caleb. I understand that people are not, but I am personally very high on him. And also just the Titans are not that great of a team yet. I mean, I think Levis is very interesting. I think he has a good deep ball, but I also just think they don't have the defensive firepower to keep up with the Bears. I do also, the only big thing I have with the Bears, my gripe with the Bears is just their offensive line is not that great. But the skill positions I love. I think
a bad offensive line can take away every good skill position you have.
Right.
So if they hold up, and there still might be some growing pains, but I do think in an early season with not a lot of film on Caleb that he's going to be able to, figure it out. Maybe he gets a little lull toward as it goes on, but I think Tennessee isn't too crazy of a matchup to have in the first game. But again, for Caleb Williams, this is the best situation a young quarterback has probably gone into in the last 15 years, at least. If you look at all of the teams to come in and start right away and have this many weapons now, there's some, like obviously Patrick Mahomes had the best situation being a backup on a good team and getting to sit for a year. But to someone who's able to come in and start right away, Caleb Williams is the best situation there is.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think he comes in and they're just going to be letting him sling it around and, dice up that Tennessee defense.
And don't sleep on his legs either. He can run.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he can run. And now let's look towards we have the Patriots and the Bengals. What are we thinking here?
I'm going to take the Bengals, I mean, it's like the Bengals are still missing Jamar Chase, and it's not likely that he's going to play the first game. But the Patriots are just bad. And, it's nice to say that after so many years, but this is just all the bad Bill Belichick drafting coming out and, affecting them finally. Gerard Mayo's the coach now. It's not Bill Belichick, so that's interesting. That'll be something to look out for, a big storyline. But still, it's gonna be all Bengals this game. They're just gonna keep it simple, and now maybe it'll be closer than without Jamar Chase because they kind of find a way to create offense without him. But I just don't think the Patriots are good enough at all to keep up with a team this deep like the Bengals.
I will say, though, I am going to take the Bengals here, but I think that this is going to be a much closer game than people are saying. Like, the Bengals are currently favored by, almost 8 points right now.
Oh, it's going to be close for sure.
I think it's going to be a close game because the Bengals always just start off very cold. This is with, their full rosters. We've seen it before. They start off, 0-2 or, 1-3 or something like that. Then they go on a run, like they usually do. But I think that they're going to get off to a slow start this game, but then obviously come out on top. Not having Jamar Chase is going to hurt that offense a lot, personally. But I still love T. Higgins. I think he could probably have a monster game to show out. But is Christian Gonzalez back for the Patriots, or is he still recovering?
I do not know.
I'll check right now. But I love Christian Gonzalez. I think he's one of the best young corners in the game. And he is active. Okay, yeah. I love Christian Gonzalez. I think he's one of the best young corners in the game. I don't think that they're still going to be able to fully shut down the Bengals, but I think it's going to be very close.
Yeah, it's tough when it's just him as well on a
Yeah,
defense that's got a couple solid players, but just overall, just it's not going to cut it. Like I've
not too
seen that with
great.
a lot of Jet teams in the past. When you have
Exactly.
like Quinn and Williams in the front, and you kind of just have the rest of the team. Like there's a couple solid, you get one solid corner, but then you're like, there's 11 guys in the field. If you have three
Right.
that are very good, then it helps. But what are you going to really do? Especially with the Bengals, like I said, like the Patriots, I like could have had a surprise this game potentially if
Hmm.
they played a team that I wod say that's like middle of the pack. Maybe they come out and sting them. Even with the Bengals not at full strength, I just think
Right.
their depth is just that much better than the Patriots that they still win regardless.
Definitely. Yeah, it's hard to disagree there.
All right, so now we got a AFC South matchup: Houston and Indianapolis. Houston coming off the big division win last year and the playoff win, which kind of surprised a lot of folks. And CJ Stroud's coming back looking for more. He's got his trio now with Stephon Diggs joining the fold, and I think they're going to pick up right where they left off. And now that's not to say the Colts are bad, but I think the Texans, got a lot of excitement rolling in, and they're going to go on the road and win this game.
I I think I'm gonna go the Colts here. They were in contention for the division till that final game when they went for it on fourth down and dropped the pass that like everyone was talking about. This is a slept on football team in terms of the uncertainty with Anthony Richardson. I am a big believer in him, but all the physical tools are there, but he has to stay healthy.
Yeah, his injury history scares me a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. Um, JT is great. I think everyone understands that. Pittman is really good too. And I just think Houston now with expectations could be a little bit different. Last year, they obviously were predicted to be, if not one of the worst teams in the NFL, from what I remember.
That's true. I know. I see them like a Green Bay situation. They're a little bit overrated. Like
Mhm.
very good team, but you know, again, I have them winning this game, but I just think overall, everyone's expecting them to kind of maybe go to the Super Bowl, and I'm like, all right,
Right.
let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like they
Yeah,
can.
they
There's no
could.
reason they can't, but
They
it's
could.
just I think a little premature. Just because that's like all these teams, like they have one good year, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, Super Bowl. Like you see the same thing with the Lions, who I
Right.
think that's a little bit different because they went further and they proved more. But all these teams,
I also think like the idea of working out the kinks with these new offensive pieces with Diggs, who's gonna obviously command the ball a lot, and now Joe Mixon. These are just new faces that obviously they're not familiar with getting a lot of snaps. So I feel like that could be an issue there as well. So
and it's
that's
tough to
why,
have it be a
yeah,
divisional game as the first one
that's
too.
that's true too. It's always going to be close with the divisional game. That's why I'm leaning towards the Colts here at home. But yeah, so
Yeah,
now we're going to be looking towards Jacksonville and Miami. What are we thinking here?
I'm taking the Dolphins. You know, like they missed the playoffs last year, right?
No,
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 they
they
not.
made it.
No, they did make it.
Chiefs though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they lose to Kansas City,
Yeah.
and they kind of just stumbled into the playoffs last year. Like I don't know, they Jacksonville just doesn't excite me like it excites a lot of other people. Now, there are some expectations that they come back and take the division because remember they had the big lead and then they blew it.
Right. Yep.
So that's a possibility. I don't love what they did with their team. Like defense is okay, offense is just okay. Like I feel like they're just like the Jacksonville Jaguars are just like the epitome of mid. I feel like to me, like
Okay.
Trevor Lawrence needs to take that next step, and they've been saying that for years, and he just hasn't. So I think
Hmm.
this year is the one where he kind of has to, or you're kind of stuck in no man's land. So Miami, they always play well early in the season. Like I said, they stumble down the stretch, and they usually put up a lot of points early on in the year. First couple weeks, they're just scoring like crazy. So I think we're going to see that again, and I think Miami's going to, in a shootout, come out and you know beat Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm gonna also lean towards Miami here with that argument that they're just great always out the gate. It felt like last year when I was watching them early on in the season, I was like, I think this may be the best team in the NFL. Like the first like 4 or 5 games, I was like, wow, they
I
look.
never bought it. I knew it was all.
I I was like, wow, I didn't know that they were this good out the gate, and then they obviously crumbled and were just what we thought that
It
they
was
would.
very shallow the offense to me.
Yeah.
It was like I kind of saw through it that it was just like all flash and there was no substance to it.
Right. I mean, you can make an argument though that they have like the fastest offense in the
Oh,
NFL.
they do. They definitely
Yeah.
do.
Which with Hill and A Chain, like they are electric.
And I know
They
they
are
had a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but they're still a more offensive focused team, which I
definitely.
feel like when you lean so much in your offense, it's just something's bound to go wrong eventually.
Well, yeah, they currently are dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive side. Obviously, Bradley Chubb got hurt towards the end of the year last year, which was a big blow for them. Um, I still also just like the idea of their home field advantage. They are considered to have like one of the best home field advantages in the NFL because the sun like actually goes on the away team's like players, so it makes them more tired and all that type of stuff. And also just yeah, it's early on regular season. Dolphins are usually winning every single game. What it feels like the first 4 weeks. So yeah, I'm heading there.
Yeah, definitely in agreement on the Dolphins. But then again, Jacksonville's a Florida team as well. So
That's true.
I don't know if that plays any factors, but Miami's just explosive in the beginning. Next game, we got the Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints. That's an NFC South game. Give me the Saints. Not really much to say about it there. I think the Panthers are probably the worst team in the NFL. Maybe they surprise here and there. Again, division games, you never know what could happen. Maybe they beat the Saints at some point. But New Orleans is at home. I know they're excited about the year. They always are, even though I think their team is just okay. I think Derek Carr, he's solid. You know what you're going to get. I think early season, he usually looks pretty good. So I got the Saints. Nothing more to that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Saints here too. It's just like you mentioned it earlier with another team, or I think with Jacksonville saying like they're just the definition of mid. That's what I think of when I think of the Saints. They're just middle of the road. They don't have anything that like really jumps out the page for
They've been
me.
like the same team for the last like 5 years. Like I feel like that defense is just the same names.
It's the same names. It's nothing like oh wow like but Carolina is just awful.
Yeah.
They're like just awful. They also made one of the worst trades where
Well,
the
that's the worst part. You have that
yeah
awful of a season, and you have the first pick, and you don't even own it. That's how you
yeah
know it's
you don't
bad.
even own the first pick
You don't even, so you
because you
can't
love
even like
wrestling
have
them.
that to look forward to. That you have somebody who's like better. Like we drafted this guy first overall, or we traded the pick and got a whole bunch of assets.
Right.
You have nothing. You had a terrible year for what? So now they got to hope Bryce Young is good. Like he's looked okay at times, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to work out with him because I think he has nobody.
He has no
There's
real
not very
weapon.
many weapons. I mean, they drafted Legit, who seems pretty good, but there's no line. There's
No
not
line.
many weapons at all, and the defense isn't great. So what's going to happen? He's going to be on the field all the time, getting
Yeah.
rocked, and it's going to just stunt his development. I think it's a shame, but
What I have been seeing is at least through their camp notes, Deontay Johnson may end up being poised for a big year. He may get fed the ball from what I've been seeing. Um, and it kind of intrigues me because it's like the idea of like Thielen like 2 years ago, where it looked like he was kind of starting to become a little bit washed. Then he goes to Panthers last year, and he has another 1,000-yard season. I didn't even think that was possible for Adam Thielen at
I
that.
guess that's where these guys, you're going to get playing time, and you have a chance to, no expectations, go out there and just ball. So
Exactly. So I
that's what they
yeah.
all really have looking for them. Like the Panthers, if Bryce Young can be good, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a win. They have to
Right.
make it through
This
with
is
like
solid.
progress.
Yeah, definitely.
All right,
But
next
yeah,
up we got your game. New York
let's go.
Giants hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Year 100 for the Giants. I believe this is the first time the Vikings are playing the Giants since the playoff game
Oh,
in
really?
2022,
I
unless
didn't
they
know
played
that.
last year.
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think they did,
Yeah, I don't think so.
but I don't know. I think Minnesota's angry about that. I know they don't have Kirk Cousins anymore, but I don't know. The Giants are a very weird team this year because I don't think that they are very good, personally,
Okay.
looking at the roster. But then again, they did make some nice additions. Like Malik Neighbors is going to be a lot of
Yeah,
fun to watch.
definitely.
But the problem is Daniel Jones is throwing in the ball, and I feel like Jones had a worse point than ever in his career. Um, he peaked in 2022, I think. Now maybe he figures it out somewhere else. I just think this is the end of the road for him. I think Drew Lock takes over and starts a couple games at some point. Don't know when. I think they're going to switch it up. Tommy DeVito's still there. He might get in because it just the way I see the Giants. is just a team that's going to be like, I think in like the 4 to like 7 win range, and they're going to draft a quarterback or they're going to trade up to get a quarterback next year. Because I think that's what's going to hold them back. They have a lot of solid pieces. Like a lot of people forget they got Brian Burns too.
Yep.
So they're going to be okay, not great. And I think they draft a quarterback next year. But as for this game, Minnesota, they're a very similar team. JJ McCarthy being down really hurts them. Got to feel bad, for him and the team, as he started to look good in the preseason. Mm-hmm. But then again, Sam Darnold's getting a shot, and I know we've always battled on Sam Darnold for years. But last year when he filled in for San Francisco, he was solid, and this is the best team he's I think ever gotten a chance to like really play with. So I think he's going to be back in a familiar city. He's going to want to show everybody. So I like Minnesota this game. I think they're the better team, and I think they pull it out on the road, get a little bit of revenge for that playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, you could call me a homer all you want. I think I'm just going to go with the Giants here.
Do whatever you want. I can't blame you for that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if the Giants win.
Yeah, no.
Everybody's on the hot seat too. They gotta get things going early.
Yeah. I think in terms of the offense, I think that they actually made a lot of great additions onto the line this offseason. I understand that they lost Saquon, which doesn't sound great on paper, but you bring in Devin Singletary, who also has a similar yards per carry. So at least you're going to get similar efficiency. You may not get exactly Saquon, but you could get similar-ish production. Their wide receiver room is pretty good. They have a bunch of solid young receivers. There's no stud yet. Hoping it's Malik Neighbors because he looks amazing so far. And yeah, it all really does come down to Daniel Jones for the Giants this year. However good he ends up being is probably how far this team is going to go. But I just hate some of the takes that people are saying about the Giants. They're like making the argument that they're probably like the worst team in the NFL or like top 2 worst.
No.
I don't think that they're that bad. I think people are hating on them a little bit too much, and I think this is one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. You got Thibodeau, you got Burns, you got Dexter Lawrence.
Oh, for sure.
They have a nasty D-line, and I think it's being slept on, and everyone's just like, oh, well, the Giants are the Giants, like they're not good. And I'm not saying that the Giants are going to be great, but I think realistically they could win 7 games this year.
Yeah. They're in like the second tier, I think. Yeah, but I just think Daniel Jones is going to hold them back. I'd never been a Daniel Jones fan. When he had that good year, I was like, I guess I'm wrong. But he kind of really went back like bad last year.
Well, yeah, and then he got injured, and then
which is bad luck. But before the injury,
right, he still didn't look good.
He didn't look great. So this is kind of it for him in New York. I know Dable has a lot on his plate too. So we're gonna see how it works out. But again, the wide receivers might make things easier because you didn't see a lot of Jalen Hyatt last year where he could have an expanded role.
Definitely.
And Wan'Dale Robinson expanded role. So there's guys that you haven't seen much from. And now with Neighbors getting all the attention, that might open things up there. So it should be fun. But I'm going to take Minnesota.
Okay. So now
Vegas and LA.
Yeah, Vegas, LA. What are we thinking here?
I got the Raiders, honestly.
Okay.
For Harbaugh's first game with the Chargers, Herbert's been a little injured. I know, his status has kind of been up in the air. And the Raiders are just another one of those teams. I feel like early season, they just show out. I feel like they start strong and they finish strong. The middle of the season is where they kind of have like a lull. So I think Antonio Pierce, he's full-time head coach. They're fired up about that. They got Jim Harbaugh's first game. They want to show something there. Minshew is always solid. He gives you what you want to do. Devontae Adams is there for the beginning, and I give them the upset.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that the Raiders aren't even favored in this game, honestly. I just feel like the Chargers don't have much weapons anymore. I mean, you lose Keenan, you lose Mike Williams, you lose Eckler, who obviously was bad last year, but you lose him as well. And this is just a completely new team with not great improvements. So,
and they didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they've been pretty underperforming, to say the least, the past few years. Even when they did make the playoffs and then had that big lead and then blew it, it's just you would think that the Chargers would have had more success over the past few years. And yeah, with the Raiders, You still have Devontae Adams, who is one of the best receivers in the NFL. Minshew is very solid. He kept the Colts in that race last year. He was basically the reason why the Colts were in it till that final game.
The Jets would have made the playoffs with Gardner Minshew last year.
Yeah, why not? I mean, yeah, he was really solid last year. So I think, and also in terms of Jacoby Myers, he's one of like the best supporting wide receivers, I would say. He just gives you very solid production every single year.
Yep.
And yeah, their record last year when Antonio Pierce took over was completely different. I was so happy that they brought him back. He clearly brought great morale into that locker room and completely changed things for them. But yeah, for this game, I'm going to also be going with the Raiders.
The Raiders, a surprising agreement there on that game.
Yeah.
We're in the late slate now. Denver and Seattle, Super Bowl 48 rematch. I know it's been a while since that one, but I'm going to take the Seahawks. Denver's, I don't really love Bo Nix starting early on. I feel like that's like a disaster waiting to happen. Like, he's been good, and I like him as a player. I think they jumped the gun on that pick, and I think him going first game, Seattle, again, not as good as Seattle teams we've seen in the past, new coach, but he's a defensive-oriented coach from Baltimore. He was their coordinator, and he's going to, be ready to bring the boom on that Denver team in that first one. So I'm going to take Seattle.
I think, in terms of experience and all that type of stuff, Geno is obviously a much better quarterback than Bo Nix at this point. Bo Nix, I think, can be really solid eventually, but their team is not too talented. They have a solid defense. Pat Surtain, I love personally, but I just think Seattle at home, they usually do pretty well at home. I like their chances. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have potentially a breakout year for them. And I think I'm just going to be rolling Seattle on this.
Yep. So another agreement there. I don't know, that Bo Nix, it just reminds me of Zach Wilson starting his first game a little bit. I just don't think he's ready at all. And I know Zach Wilson's there, so that's not really why, but I feel like it's a similar situation.
Right. I get it.
All right. So we got Dallas and Cleveland. I know what you're going to go with. I was originally going to lean Dallas. I think they usually win early in the year, but I just like this Cleveland team a lot. And now that they have their quarterback room healthy after last year, I like that team last year going in. I've always kind of liked the Browns roster and never thought they got enough credit, but that defense is really good. And now you got Deshaun Watson. Again, he's still hungry to return to form from 2020. This is a good team. I'm going to have them take over Dallas. They're going to be at home this first game. And first game for Tom Brady on TV. They're going to want to show out.
Okay.
So give me the Browns.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be going the Cowboys here.
Really?
Yeah. I think on paper, Dallas has a great team. On paper. We all understand how they do in the regular season. They do great every single year in the regular season. And then they lose in the divisional. And last year they lost a round earlier than usual because they just don't get it done in the playoffs. But they are a very good regular season team. Dak is in a contract year. I think he's going to be more motivated than ever to put up great stats. CD just got his big extension. I think he's obviously still going to be great. Their run game is a bit questionable with.
Yeah, I don't love the running room there.
And then Dwaddle or something like that. It's not too great. Not too happy about it. But they have solid enough pieces on offense. And then their defense is really good. Micah Parsons is phenomenal. Yeah, I hate the Cowboys because, well, they're my rival. But they have a really good defense. And we saw it even week 1 of last year when everyone was excited for the Giants after they made that playoff run. And they
got smoked.
40-0. 40-0. They're a good team. And I'm not a big believer in Watson anymore. I just feel like he's not the same. Since the off-the-field stuff, since the injuries, he just doesn't look like the same player the past few seasons. And I don't know if we ever get that again.
I like their defense.
Their defense is really good.
Yeah, I think that against CD hasn't had the full camp with the team with the contract situation, and I don't like Dallas's running back room at all. So I don't know. Cleveland's going to get it going.
Okay. Now we're looking towards the Commanders and the Buccaneers.
Commanders are going to be a little bit fun this year. Low expectations, new coach, Jaden Daniels, but I'm going to take the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield's back. He's got a swagger, and he's having fun. They're a pretty solid team. Nothing too special, but again, going to be in the mix for the wild card. They're not going to make it. They're going to give the Falcons a little bit of a challenge, I think, in that division. And so I got them winning this one.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go Bucks here. Just the Commanders are not there yet. They're obviously in a full-on rebuild. I am a big believer in Jaden Daniels, though. I think he can end up being a really good player for them. But yeah, they just have more veterans in terms of the offensive side of the ball with Evans and Godwin, who are just consistently very good every year. Rachaad White is obviously a very solid running back. Maybe not in terms of efficiency, but he gets the workload and he does pretty good. And Baker is solid. I mean, he usually has like a very good year, then like a very bad year, and then like somewhere in between. So I don't know what version of Baker I'm getting, but I think it's a version that's better than what the Commanders currently have. So yeah, I'm going to be leaning Bucks there as well.
All right, on to the night games. Rams, Lions, and this was the playoff game that ended the Rams season in the divisional round a year ago. So I got him getting revenge. Stafford, he's going back in Detroit, and I think they booed him, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So that wasn't fun for him. So the Rams bring back a similar team, and Lions have all these expectations. They're salty taste in their mouth. They didn't make it to the Super Bowl. They were winning in that game. The Rams are going to come out and kind of kick them in the kneecap when they're not expecting it, and they're going to come in and they're going to take it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm still going Lions here. I feel like the thing with the Lions is honestly their worst enemy could be themselves at times, where they're a bit overly aggressive. I understand that's what they are, and that's what got them there, but I don't know. At times they could be a little too ultra aggressive with fourth down calls, in my opinion.
I remember discussing this.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, they have great offensive pieces. Jared Goff has obviously taken a step up. I think you could argue that he's probably a top 10 quarterback at this point. Amon-Ra is still a phenomenal wide receiver. Gibbs is due for a breakout. Laporta obviously was phenomenal in his rookie year. The question comes on the defensive side of the ball. They have Aiden Hutchinson, who's really good. The rest are kind of question marks. So, like, if they could just hold the team to 20 points, they'll win most games. And yeah, I always like the Lions at home. I feel like they play really well at home. They always put up offensive numbers at home. So yeah, I'm going to lean Lions here.
All right. Monday Night Football, New York Jets, San Francisco 49ers. I think we all know where I'm going with this one.
Yeah. Where are you headed?
Listen, it's become harder to pick the Jets in the last few days with San Francisco bringing Trent Williams back in, bringing Brandon Ayuk back in. McCaffrey is fully healthy and ready to go. It makes it harder. And especially because Aaron Rodgers now hasn't played a game in a long time. Okay. But I just think the Jets are just so hungry and frustrated after last year. They got even better than they managed to be. The defense is better. And I think Breece Hall, this is going to be the Breece Hall show. This game, the whole season, I think he is the X factor. Now, that's not to say that the receiver room isn't great, because Garrett Wilson, with a competent quarterback, could explode. He only has 7 touchdowns in 2 years. Right. He could get 7 this year with Aaron Rodgers, and obviously Mike Williams behind him. But Breece Hall, I think, makes everybody's job easier if you just give him the ball, and he's going to put on a show. And I think that's what's going to get things going for the Jets in this game. The 49ers have a great pass rush, and I think they're going to want to ease Rodgers in and not make him do too much. Quicker throws. Don't want to obviously risk injury again, but it's also his first game back and not make him do anything crazy. Then again, he's been using his arm like a madman all summer, making ridiculous throws. But it's going to be the Breece Hall show. I think their run defense on San Francisco isn't as good as their pass protection, so I think that's what they're going to let it do. They have other running backs they brought in. So I'm going to take the Jets on the road, give revenge for Rodgers' return, and hopefully all goes well with that one. But it should be an exciting game on Monday night.
No, definitely is going to be a great game for sure. I think Yeah, I think I'm also going to go the Jets here. I know I know you probably would have thought I went San Francisco. Um,
Definitely.
the thing is here with all of like the camp issues with Ayuk, then you had the Williams situation. This 49ers team, obviously they have a lot of experience playing together, but it's just not a great way to build chemistry for the year, at least for the first game. Um, Also, I am concerned with McCaffrey. I understand that he's probably going to play, but calf strings and calf strains and like injuries like that, like hamstrings and stuff like that, they tend to linger, and like there's a chance that you could easily re-injure said injury. So that's a concerning factor for me
He
as well.
always, and all of his injuries that he's had have been like in the lower body.
In the
So
lower body, lower
yeah,
leg, yeah. So
and you
that
forget San Francisco's always not great at the beginning of the year too. They're one of those teams that starts out very poor and then figures it out as they go on.
definitely. And then yeah, you look at the Jets side. It's just they have much more continuity. I mean, obviously they had the Hassan Reddick situation, but like besides that, they have solid continuity at least
Yeah,
in camp and all that. Their offensive line is vastly improved. Um, I love the addition of Tyron Smith. I think he's one of the best tackles in the NFL when he's healthy. That's the thing I want to preface with the Jets. When healthy, I think they could be very good.
well, that's why they can
Will
win this
they be
game
healthy? Will they
because
be healthy?
everybody's there.
Yeah.
And that's what
No,
I'm saying. Like keeping it easy, it's going to be all on Brees Hall, I think, because as good as this offensive line can be when healthy, as you mentioned, they're
right.
still getting that chemistry. Now they've worked together all summer, but in a real game situation is much different when the starters haven't gone in. So I think they're going to be good, but it's going to be
Mhm.
up to Brees Hall for creating those holes and being making those explosive plays, making it easier on them as well. So and for the Sound Reddick thing, which you also brought up, I think it's a
Yeah.
distraction. Like in the media only. Like I think there, since he's never shown up, it's just like he's not a guy on the team. And if he shows up, great. Like
Right.
it's going to be in the back of your mind. But when they're out there against San Francisco on Monday night, they're not going to be thinking, "Where's Hassan Reddick?" He's
Right.
never walked in the door before. He's
Correct.
never been in the building. So I think it's going to be a boost when he shows up because I think not for this game, maybe not for the second game, but
Hmm.
he's going to cave eventually. The Jets aren't going to cave. They have no reason to. But
Yeah.
Hassan Reddick, he's not going to want to miss those game checks.
It's a lot of money he's leaving out on the table. And you look at the way I view Hassan Reddick as a player, I feel like he's more of a product of his environment type of thing. Where if he has good players around him, then he's gonna rack up a lot of sacks. And well, the Jets have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. So you put him in that situation, I think he could easily be a double digit sack candidate. But does he want to show up? And again, he only has 1 year left on his deal, but he'll lose a lot of money this year.
He's been around too. He's not getting any younger, so I don't know if it's going to be a smart decision for him to sit out games.
Probably not. I
He's
think
been
that
on a
would
couple
hurt him in
teams
the long
now. Like I
run.
get he wants that one more big contract. I don't know if he's going to get it from the Jets. They're not in that position to give it to him. He was just a luxury.
Right. The only thing that hurts is obviously you guys lost Huff. So like the net return of like, oh well, we lost Huff but then got Reddick. That sounds great, but then if you don't have Reddick, then it's like, all right, then
Yeah,
we
I don't
just
know. He's still a luxury because they have so many defensive linemen. The Jets, it's actually kind of ridiculous, but
it is ridiculous. Yeah,
they have enough. They're going to be
very
okay in that department,
cool.
especially when your secondary is probably top two and not two in the NFL. So
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, Sauce is unreal.
Sauce, DJ Reed, Michael Carter, who just got an extension. So
Yep.
the defense is going to lock it up. They've been healthy doing their thing. So that defense, have you seen the stat though? If the Jets, if Aaron Rodgers defense gave up 20 points or less, he's only has one loss in his whole career,
That's insane.
or something like that. It could be wrong, but it's a very low number. I don't know if
So
I might not exactly be right,
then the
but
Jets are going 16-1, right?
well, that would be crazy. But I don't know. Week one, they won week one last year without him, and I think if he
Uh-huh.
stays healthy this game, it's a tougher matchup, but it could definitely be done. So,
Yeah.
like I said, the Brees Hall show.
Okay. All right, I'll mark it down. Brees Hall show.
Brees Hall show. But yeah, that's this is the SRL and the NFL week one down. Bit of a long one. I said we're gonna be working out how we want to do this as we move along. This is the first one, but definitely a lot of fun. I don't think they're gonna be as long going forward. We had a lot of analysis on teams to start the year, But once we get games, then we're going to be able to kind of review the games, what happened there, not of what we think is going to happen and how we view teams off seasons. So, yeah, we're going to do a recap of the last week. Maybe not every game, some of them if they weren't too interesting, but at least the big ones, kind of talk about the big storylines going out throughout the week, and then do our same thing here, predictions for the next one. And we're going to keep track as we go on throughout the year. It's going to be on our social media channels. We're going to be posting a lot of extra content, especially with our record and stuff. So on Instagram, it'll be SRL.media, and on TikTok, SRL_media. But definitely we're excited to keep this going. Again, my name is Brendan Yerkes, and we're going to be joined, as always, by Alex Facciponte every single week here on the SRL on the NFL. So enjoy the games this weekend. Football is finally back. We're excited to get that going. And, yeah, stay tuned for more in the next coming weeks. Again, this is the SRL on the NFL. Thank you so much for tuning in.